Have you ever felt like you're running this, I don't know, personal obstacle course? And the biggest hurdle, the really frustrating one, is the one you seem to drag along yourself.
Yeah, that feeling of being your own worst enemy.
Exactly. We dig into complex stuff here. But today, it's maybe the most complex but also actionable subject.
Yeah.
That internal resistance, the thing that just keeps you stuck.
That's right. And the sources we're looking at today use this really powerful metaphor. The mountain is you.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission really is to cut through the noise, the excuses, and figure out why that block, the one between you and the life you want, why it's almost always, well, internal.
I think one of the sharpest points the sources make is distinguishing between facing the reality of life and facing the reality of yourself.
Okay, explain that a bit.
Well, like if you have a problem that's circumstantial, a flat tire, a tricky client, just one bad day, that's life's chaos, right? You deal with it.
Right, external stuff happens.
But if the problem is chronic, like you always seem to be struggling with money, or you find yourself sabotaging every good relationship, then you're not facing life. You're facing yourself.
Ah, okay. That hits home. It's the pattern.
It's a pattern.
And we really need to challenge that common idea that self-sabotage means you're weak or you secretly hate yourself. It's usually not that dramatic.
No. What is it then?
Well, the sources suggest something maybe more empathetic. It's that self-sabotage is actually a misguided attempt at self-protection. Your subconscious trying to keep you safe in a weird way.
Okay, that reframes everything. If it's protection,
Yeah.
what's the mechanism? I mean, what is the subconscious trying to protect us from?
Okay, so think of it like this. Self-sabotage happens when there's some kind of unconscious need that's being met by that self-defeating behavior.
An unconscious need.
Yeah, it's like a temporary fix, a coping mechanism that isn't really helpful long-term. Maladaptive is the term. It jumps in to help you avoid something your unconscious mind thinks is an even bigger threat than, say, failing at that project.
Wow, so our own minds work against our conscious goals. That's unsettling. We think of resistance as mental, but the sources bring up Carl Jung to make it more tangible, right?
Yes, exactly. Jung, when he was a kid, apparently really didn't like school. And after hitting his head once, he started having these fainting spells. Totally uncontrollable. He called it a neurosis.
Right.
Years later, he realized the fainting was basically his unconscious mind's way of getting him out of class. His body literally created a substitute for legitimate suffering, as he put it.
A physical illness to avoid the discomfort.
Precisely. A way to avoid the classroom without having to consciously decide to skip.
That perfectly illustrates how resistance isn't just random static. It's rooted in something specific, often something older than whatever your current goal is.
Definitely. And this ties right back to those limiting inner narratives we all carry around, our self-concept.
So old stories we tell ourselves.
Absolutely. Self-sabotage often comes from these outdated beliefs, maybe formed way back in childhood, that create these negative associations we're not even aware of.
That resistance sounds incredibly powerful. Is it always logical, or are we just fighting habits, fighting the familiar?
We're mostly fighting the familiar. Take the classic example. Someone who constantly messes up their finances. They make bad investments, miss deadlines, whatever.
Okay.
If you dig down, trace back their earliest ideas about money, you might find this deep-seated belief like, rich people are greedy, or money corrupts, something they picked up growing up.
So the anxiety isn't really about handling the money itself.
No.
It's about becoming one of those bad rich people. It violates their identity.
Exactly that. Your unconscious resists wealth because having it would clash with that core belief about being a good person, the anxiety you feel around money. That's just the friction from that old limiting belief trying to keep your self-image intact. It's kind of sobering, isn't it? That we subconsciously put a ceiling on how good things can get just to stay in our comfort zone. Which brings us neatly to this key idea from the sources, Gay Hendricks' concept of the upper limit.
The upper limit. Yeah, it's basically your internal thermostat for happiness and success, how much good you can tolerate.
Right.
Because we're fundamentally wired for familiarity, for comfort, not necessarily for constant, boundless joy or achievement. That feels unsafe to the primitive brain.
So when life gets better than usual, maybe a relationship feels too good, or a project takes off too successfully.
Your brain flags it. Unfamiliar territory. Feels like chaos, maybe exposure, danger.
And the response is?
Subconsciously, you trigger some kind of self-sabotage. You pick a fight, you get anxious, you make a silly mistake,
Hmm.
something, anything, to bring things back down to that familiar baseline level you're used to.
That explains why people hit a certain level of success and then consistently seem to, well, blow it up.
That's the upper limit problem in action. They hit their internal ceiling. So the first step in climbing higher is just recognizing that moment, that feeling of this is too good, and consciously choosing not to retreat.
Yes, and that recognition demands total accountability, brutal honesty sometimes.
Yeah.
You can't climb the mountain if you're still pretending it's not there or it's someone else's fault.
Mhm.
The sources are clear. Trying to plaster over real unhappiness with, like, endless affirmations, while deep down you know you're not okay. That just keeps you stuck. Justifying why things are bad is, well, it's giving up before you start.
Okay, so if the root cause is this weird self-protection impulse, how does that fear actually show up day to day? The sources outline some really common patterns, these cycles of self-sabotage. Let's break down the first one. Resistance.
Ah, resistance, the classic. And what's sneaky is that it often pops up when things are actually going right, not wrong.
Really? How so?
You finally sit down to start that business, or you meet someone amazing and things are clicking, and bam. Suddenly you feel tense or angry, or you just can't focus. It's your internal system pumping the brakes saying, whoa, are you sure about this commitment? Let's slow down.
I think most people's instinct is just to push harder against that feeling. Just force it.
Right, the power through mentality. But that usually just makes the internal battle worse. The sources suggest a different approach. Step back for a moment. Reconnect with why you started the inspiration. Then wait for genuine motivation to come back.
So don't rely on brute force.
Exactly. Resistance is often loudest when you're trying to force effort you don't genuinely feel. When you're truly pulled by a vision for something better, the why is stronger than the fear, and the resistance tends to, well, it just fades more naturally.
Okay, pattern number 2. Perfectionism. This one's tricky because people almost wear it like a badge of honor.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a perfectionist. Often sounds like a humble brag in job interviews, doesn't it? But fundamentally, perfectionism isn't a virtue. It's fear. Plain and simple. Fear of failing, fear of criticism, fear of looking stupid, fear of being vulnerable. It stops you from doing the essential, messy, imperfect, early work.
So the antidote isn't trying to do better work initially, it's just getting something done.
Precisely. Prioritize progress over perfection. Forget the bestseller first draft. Just write the draft. Get a basic version out there. You can only refine something after it exists. Perfectionism is really just procrastination dressed up in fancy clothes. High-level stalling.
Okay, third pattern, and I feel like I see this one a lot. Uprooting, that constant need for a fresh start. Jumping jobs, relationships, cities, whenever things get tough or require real commitment.
Ah, yes, the geographic cure fallacy. This is the person who's only comfortable in the sprouting phase, but freaks out when it's time to actually blossom and put down roots.
Sprouting versus blossoming, I like that.
Yeah. When life demands vulnerability or gets complex or just plain difficult, the uprooter starts scanning the horizon for the next new place to begin again. It takes enormous energy to keep starting over.
Which conveniently distracts you from dealing with the actual internal issue you've dragged along with you.
You got it. The solution. Face the discomfort. Stay put, at least emotionally, when that urge to flee hits. See what's really driving it.
And the last one, very relevant today. Disorganization or being busy. This needs a bit of careful unpacking.
It does. Let's take disorganization first. Actual chaos, messy desk, jumbled projects. No calendar can serve an unconscious purpose.
Which is?
As long as things are chaotic, you're always just about to get organized enough to take that next big, scary step. The mess becomes a buffer zone, a shield.
Ah, okay. A reason to delay. And then there's the performance of being busy.
Right. Constantly saying, I'm so busy, especially when it's maybe self-inflicted. That's often a way to avoid what really matters or what's genuinely wrong. Plus, it can subtly signal self-importance. My time is too valuable for this trivial thing, but underneath it usually just points to poor boundaries or bad time management.
Looking important while avoiding the important stuff.
Kind of, yeah. It's a shield in a different way.
Okay, we've got the core conflict, this misplaced self-protection, and the 4 main disguises. Resistance, perfectionism, uprooting, and busyness disorganization. But knowing this, it still feels like fighting our own wiring, right? That deep pull towards comfort. How do we actually start to change?
This is where we bump up against the brain's core operating system, the homeostatic impulse. Your subconscious mind acts like a thermostat for your comfort zone. Its job is to keep things stable, familiar. It hates change,
Even positive change.
especially positive change sometimes, because change equals unknown, and unknown equals potential threat. So success, happiness, growth initially, they can feel uncomfortable, even dangerous, until they become the new familiar.
Okay, so it registers as a crisis,
Yeah.
almost.
It can, yeah. Which is why waiting for some big bang transformation, like in the movies, is usually, well, it's not how it works.
Because the breakthroughs we see are usually just the visible tip of a very large iceberg of slow, steady work.
Exactly. They're tipping points. Real, lasting change happens through microshifts. Tiny, almost invisible decisions you make every single day. Think about that classic riddle. Would you take $1 million now or a penny that doubles every day for a month?
Right, the doubling penny. It starts incredibly slow, looks like nothing's happening for
It's the
weeks. But then
weeks.
the compounding kicks in, and it ends up being worth way more, like 10 million or something.
That's the perfect analogy for changing habits and expanding your comfort zone. You don't need some huge burst of motivation to start. You just need to make one tiny shift today. Do this slightly uncomfortable thing. Those small actions, repeated consistently. They compound. They build exponential results over time.
Which leads us to maybe the toughest lesson here. The need to disconnect our actions from our feelings.
This is probably the core of self-mastery right here. Your feelings, as we've said, are wired for safety and familiarity. They will naturally resist positive change because it feels unfamiliar.
So if you wait until you feel like doing the hard thing, you wait until you're motivated.
You'll likely stay stuck right where you are, at your current comfort level, forever.
Oof. That's hard, though. We're always told, trust your feelings. It takes real discipline to push past that internal alarm bell screaming, retreat, stay safe.
It takes huge discipline, but action generates its own momentum. You have to use logic, use your vision for the future, use those tiny microshifts to override the initial feeling. You take the action even when you don't feel like it, that action builds momentum, and bit by bit, it actually rewires your comfort zone. The new positive habit starts to become the familiar thing.
Okay, so if feelings are often unreliable guides, trying to keep us small, how should we handle negative emotions when they do come up? Because they will. The sources suggest they're not problems, but signals.
Yeah, think of them as messengers. We need to learn to read the message underneath the surface feeling. Take anger, for instance.
Okay.
We often try to suppress anger, but it's actually a really powerful, clarifying emotion. It shows you very clearly where your boundaries are being crossed, what you find unjust, what you won't tolerate anymore.
That's a useful way to see it. What about something like jealousy? That often feels, well, kind of ugly.
It feels messy, right? But jealousy is almost always a mask. It's covering up something else, usually sadness or feeling of dissatisfaction with yourself. But the message in jealousy is incredibly valuable. It points directly to what you secretly want for your own life, what ambition you're maybe too scared to pursue. It's like a compass pointing towards your suppressed desires.
A roadmap for ambition. Interesting. And the big one, regret.
Regret is so powerful, and the key insight is that it's almost never truly about the past action or inaction.
No. What's it about then?
It's about the future. Regret shows you, with painful clarity, what you absolutely must create or change going forward if you want to live up to your own standards, your own potential. It's fuel for future action, telling you exactly what needs to change now.
So listening to the message, not just wallowing in the feeling.
Precisely.
Now, a lot of these deep-seated patterns, this self-sabotage, can often trace back to earlier emotional trauma.
Yeah.
The sources mention that emotions get stored physically, that the body keeps the score. How do we approach healing that trauma when we're trying to build this new sense of safety?
That's crucial. Emotional trauma often locks the body into a sustained fight or flight response related to whatever caused the trauma. So healing isn't just mental, it requires physically reestablishing a sense of safety. But, and this is key in the specific area where the trauma happened, you can't just compensate somewhere else.
Can you give an example of that? Targeted healing.
Sure, let's say you have trauma around relationship betrayal or instability. You don't truly heal that by, say, obsessively hoarding money to feel in control in that area of life. You heal it by consciously, carefully building new relationships that are safe, trustworthy, and stable. You need to overwrite the old pattern with a new, safe experience in that same domain.
And if the trauma was, say, job loss and financial insecurity.
Then healing involves consciously building security there, maybe developing new skills, creating backup income streams, making a solid financial plan, not just staying anxious in another potentially unstable job. You have to address the wound directly, not just put a bandage on a different part of your life.
This whole conversation, this whole journey, it really suggests that self-mastery isn't about luck or some sudden epiphany. It's about recognizing that internal mountain that it is you, and then being willing to pay the price to climb it.
Exactly. And that price,
Yeah.
it can be significant. Climbing that mountain often means leaving behind your old life, definitely your old comfort zone, maybe even some old relationships that were built around the you that existed before the climb.
That's a heavy cost.
It can be, but the sources offer this powerful reframe. You're not meant to somehow magically return to the naive, unbroken version of yourself from before the hurt. The goal is to become resilient, to become stronger precisely where you were broken.
So if the ultimate win isn't just the external stuff, the fancy job title, the perfect Instagram photo, what is the real glow-up we should aim for when we finally reach the summit of that inner mountain?
I think it's the moment you genuinely stop living your life based on how you imagine others see you. The biggest transformation isn't about proving people wrong or collecting external badges. The real change happens when your focus shifts entirely inward, when you're guided by how your life feels to you, not how it looks to anyone else. You
Right.
stop seeking external validation because you finally earned your own approval.
Earning your own approval. That's powerful.
So ask yourself this, really sit with it. What if your greatest accomplishments weren't things you could photograph or put on a resume? What if they were simply things like deep self-respect, real mental clarity, maybe just lasting emotional freedom? What if you finally truly earned your own respect? That's the summit. That's the mountain scaled.